Hey, welcome everybody back to another episode of Chain Reaction and our podcast here, powered by Konexial. A good friend of mine, John Fitzgerald, is joining us. He is the Vice President of Business Development at Project 44, which is a global leader in supply chain visibility and a partner of ours. With 4 decades of experience, John has led sales and strategy at organizations including GT Nexus, Seco Worldwide, UPS Supply Chain Solutions, Fritz Companies, and Harper Group. His expertise spans digital supply chain transformation, cloud commerce, networks, and global trade logistics. He's the co-founder of the supply chain of Southwest Florida, which he lives in, providing education and networking opportunities for professionals in collaboration with Florida Gulf Coast University. Beyond his professional accomplishment, I think this is probably the most important thing to him. He's a speaker, author, grandfather, and dedicated volunteer. So, John, welcome. I appreciate you taking time to join us.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here today.
So, John, known you for a little while. You are a good friend of Konexial. You are a powerhouse in the space at Project 44. You are an avid LinkedIn commenter, reposter, and all that stuff, which I appreciate seeing, and you'd like to spread the word. You began your career in logistics at Airborne Freight and later rose through the ranks of Fritz companies. What was the industry like in the early years, and how did those experiences shape you? I mean, obviously, you and I go back a little bit. Like my kids like to say, when the dinosaurs roamed, and business was different then than it is today, right?
Great. Yeah. seems like 100 years ago. I actually went to Loyola. I graduated. I was in marketing and data processing, what they called it. I went to work for IBM, and then the war was going on. They ended up in the Marine Corps, and for whatever reason, while I was away, I started thinking that, transportation's the future. So when I got out, I went to work for Airborne Freight in a management training I went back to IBM. I didn't like it. Went to Airborne Freight, which is today DHL. But in those days, it was all manual. I mean, I still teach at university, and I talk to the students about, we had mimeograph machines to cut the bills of lading. We had typewriters. We had telex machines. We had these dumb terminals, the green terminals. Exception management was getting a printout, that thick with a pencil and going through and trying to figure things out. So, very, very, manual environment. There wasn't much sharing information. People really held information. There wasn't much trust in transportation. And, if I tell you too much, you can take advantage of me. So, God, we've come a long way, haven't we? I remember I hired a sales lady. This is back in the 70s. And you'd think I was a communist because, there were no women in sales and transportation. It was a good old boys network. So, but what I learned in those days hasn't changed much. It's still all about people. And I think in those days, I was in customer service, operations, sales, but I really ended up loving sales, and I loved international because I traveled to Europe and Asia for years. So those were exciting times, and I learned a lot then. But really, I guess the importance of people and education, continuous learning, which I'm still learning. Nobody has all the answers. I certainly don't.
At least internationally, you get to see some different things, but sometimes you get to some of those remote parts of the world. You don't go to Germany, you go to like this little town in the middle of nowhere out there and conduct business. So amazing. So yeah, I thought this was interesting. When you were Fritz, and I would love to know the answer to this because I'm trying to grow the company now. You grew it from 100 million to $1.5 billion in sales, while you were there. What lessons did you learn about how to rapidly scale and do it without breaking stuff?
Yeah. At the end of the day, we're all in a service business, right? So I keep going back to people, the people that are on your team and how they're trained and how the culture of service, how are you servicing your customers is really critical. I think and we talk about scaling, Fritz was a family-owned company on the West Coast, and they hired me to start Fritz Air Freight in Chicago, and we had no customers, right? Wow. And but I had a reputation, and I knew air freight, but they had customs brokerage and ocean freight, so I learned a lot. But it was a matter of going out, as you know, building relationships and having people give you a chance, right? And then bringing on people and then adding more and more offices. Because in the physical nature of freight forwarding, you have to have offices. We're a digital company. We really don't need any offices, but we do have offices around the world. But we don't touch any freight. But if you're an international air freight forwarder, NVO, et cetera, you've got to touch the freight, build consolidations, build containers. So the scaling was getting good people, automating in those days, automating as much as was available.
That means something different today than it did then.
Oh God, yeah, doesn't it? Yeah, my cell phone has more power than what we used to get to the moon. And then opening more physical offices. Hey, you're going to provide. You mentioned Germany. If you're going to have provide services in Germany, you better have an office at least in Frankfurt. So we started growing. We ended up with offices all around the world, but we had to keep building with people and delivering on the service. So I think it was a matter of protecting the base, making the customers happy, and then bringing on more and more people and more and more customers to help grow that. So awesome. And that growth was over 20 some years, so it didn't happen overnight.
Yeah, I get it. What the unique thing about your background, we talked about this before, and I've been to the office, the P44 office in Chicago, but that is the background. Your background is the office in Chicago, right? The kitchen at the office in Chicago.
Yes. Oh yeah, that's the in the merchandise mart in Chicago. Yes.
Yeah. Speaking of offices.
Yeah, it's not my house. You'd be looking at my dog.
So, talking about supply chain, transportation, logistics, things are tight today, and they were great during COVID, and now they're tight again. And you've seen different economic cycles. When you've seen past downturns, what do you see as comparison to what you're seeing today in supply chain? Because I hear from our customers, they're trying to get leaner, better, and how can technology help them? But what similarities do you see from previous downturns to the ones we're experiencing today?
Yeah, it's funny now. They call it the never normal.
The never
normal again, I say, right? So, yeah, I mean, I've been through the disruptions of the 1970 oil crisis, the dot-com burst, inflation and many other things. And at the time you're going through it, you go, oh my God, how are we going to get out of this? But I think the companies that have survived are the ones that stay calm, have a plan. They know that, sometimes, I'll give you an example. When COVID hit, as you know, a lot of companies were laying people off.
Yeah.
We hired 200 people. We thought it was going to be a definite tailwind and people were going to need visibility. And so we leaned in.
You were right.
I think I've seen that all through my life. There are people that are leaders, followers, and laggards. And so the disruptions have always been happening. But I think it's how you react to it. And what I'm seeing today, the winners are people who invest now in new technologies like Konexial and Project 44 and invest in AI and are diversifying and holding on to good people. I mean, we'll be talking about it later, I'm sure, but I keep going back to people. I mean, I don't care about AI. If you don't have good people, forget AI, because at the end of the day, human judgment and experience is the key. Creativity, innovation. AI is going to automate a lot of redundant tasks, but I still think it's people at the end of the day.
You couldn't be more right. When you look at the way you guys have built under Jet there and some of the other great people that you have, it comes down to people. We just invested in some really good people operationally and on the sales side, and I call them professionals, right? I mean, I always talk about this. We're not looking to fill a job. We're looking for people that want an opportunity, and it really does come down to people. But if you don't have people interacting with it and making decisions with what God gave you between the ears, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I always said I hired for attitude. I wanted people who really wanted to, were willing to lean in, willing to work hard, and knew that they didn't have all the answers. I've hired and fired many MBAs, and the ones that didn't make it were the ones with the chip on the shoulder that said, I got all the answers.
I got all the answers. I'm good. I went to school, man. They taught me everything.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's, the customers, they want to make sure you're listening.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So Marine Corps, let's talk about that for a second. What did you learn that helped you in your leadership roles in your career from the Marine Corps. I mean, discipline, obviously, structure, but I mean, the Marines are built different. So tell us about it.
Yeah, it was a great experience. I learned more in the Marine Corps than I did in 4 years of college. It was tremendous training, leadership training, and just training in general. Obviously, as you know, when I got out, I was still a little bit too much of a Marine. You know, it's not life and death, right? So, the things that were so important were honor and courage and the commitment. You know, the ability to make a decision, stick behind it. Have a clear mission, communicate that to your employees. Everybody understand their role, you know, and have feedback and adjust accordingly. Because, you know, when Mike Tyson say, everybody has a great plan that they get punched in the mouth, right? So
they get punched in the mouth.
So I think it was quite a few of those things. You know, the motto "Semper Fidelis," always faithful. Yeah, those were good years. And again, it was a great foundation for me.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about technology and some of the rudimentary stuff we used to use back in the day, which kids today would never understand, right?
Yeah.
So, and you've been involved in so many things in supply chain, you know, from GT Nexus to now Project 44. What have been some of the biggest technology shifts you've seen over the last 20 or 30 years?
Yeah, there's been quite a few. Obviously, the biggest one right now is certainly AI, and who knows what's going to be next, right? So when I went to GT Nexus, that's the first time I learned about cloud.
Wow.
And everything was on premise before that, right? And so
I remember think about that, man. It's crazy to think about.
Yeah, so that was 2010, and we spent 2 years, if you were a customer, just explaining what's cloud, you know, and nobody trusted it. You can't do anything in the cloud, you know. Yeah. So that, and then of course, then software as a service, and then you mentioned we'll be talking about APIs. I never knew what an API was till I came to Project 44, but yet APIs have been used in finance for 40 years. You know, it's like transportation. Transportation, we're the last ones to get new technology.
It's crazy, but yeah, speaking of APIs, and you know, when you look at technologies like APIs and EDI, you know, they've made that really kind of changed some things, you know, and it made things like go from paper and phone calls to digital and electronic transmission. Like, how do you think that that's impacted the industry?
Oh, tremendously. You know, you think about COVID. During COVID, we went to the nobody wanted to touch things, right? So we went to electronic bills of lading, an LTL during COVID. You know, out of probably fear, mistaken fear, but anyway, you know, it's been very important. API, as I said, you know, the finance industry's had it forever, and I was talking, a real quick analogy. I was talking to a CIO last year, and he said, "Oh, we got EDI, and you know, we got 20 carriers." And I said, "So you're doing EDI connections with each one of those carriers and maintaining that?" He says, "Yeah." I said, "Well, do you realize make one connection to Project 44, one API connection, and you're done. We're connected to 250,000 carriers, not just those 20, in every mode. And now you can free up those other IT resources to do other value-added activities for your customers in the organization." He went, "What?" You know, that's 2 years ago. So there's still a lot of people. I mean, EDI is 1948 Berlin airlift technology. It's batch. It's very rigid protocols, the ANSI X12, et cetera. It's not the same ease of use as APIs. When people don't understand what it is, I said, well, Uber, think of Uber. If Uber Lyft was EDI, you'd put in a request for your cab, which is sitting out in a batch. They'd probably send it out 4 hours later or later tonight. You might get an answer tomorrow. You get a cab about 3 days from now. Where API is immediate. It's real-time exchange of data. Every app on your phone is an API. So it really has really changed the game. Project 44, when I came here, we converted 99% of all the LTL carriers to API from EDI. In fact, even some major ones, I won't mention them, we'd go to their customers and pay them to switch to APIs because it reduced the amount of inbound calls to their
lift on you guys. I mean, it totally makes sense.
Yeah. So and then we took it to other modes, to full truckload and to ocean, and we're still expanding it. You know, we have 5,000 API connections, which is far more than anybody, I think, in the world probably, especially in transportation. So
That's
yeah,
amazing.
it's changed the game. There are still people out there that are on EDI, and I always tell the story. I used to travel to Asia in the 80s and 90s, and I'd go to Hong Kong and I'd be talking to you. You live there, and I'd say, "Do you have a landline?" "Oh no, can't get a landline. Takes like 5 years." I go back the next year. Everybody in the restaurant's got cell phones.
Yeah.
So they made the leapfrog. So we're telling customers, hey, you don't need the TMS. You don't need the EDI. You can jump right into the API and Internet of Things and new technologies. They're easier to implement. It's not a SAP 5 year grind it out. It's 2 to 3 months.
If you're lucky, 5 years, John. I mean, you're giving them a lot of credit over there in Germany.
Yeah.
You know?
I had a call with a client this morning. I won't mention the name, but they told me that they were going to be done May of this year. And so we had finally had a call, and I said, "How's it coming?" "Well, we pushed it to May of next year." So, I mean,
It's
that's
crazy how you just push things a year. It's wild.
yeah.
When you're talking to some of the executives out there, a lot of executives, especially in today's world, are hesitant to invest in new technologies or, what's in it for me and all that stuff. How do you explain the ROI for what you guys are doing there at Project 44 and visibility and digital connectivity to these executive leaders that may not understand them?
Yeah. Yeah. Good question. I call it the shiny object. There's a lot of people that have shelfware that have bought something, didn't know how to use it. We try to slow them down. We get a call like all the time. Hey, we would like a demo. Okay, we have 33 solutions. Can you give me about 4 hours? They go, 4 hours? I'll say, well, what problem are you trying to solve? Maybe only one or two of and maybe none of them. Maybe they need Konexial to solve that particular problem, right? So we believe there's no one system, but we do believe that data can be shared across all of us to improve the process for a customer. So usually we're trying to get the customer to slow down, talk about what problem you're trying to solve. What is the impact? Back to ROI. Are we going to improve customer service? Are we going to improve productivity? Are we going to reduce tension to merge? Are we going to, reduce vendor chargebacks? What is it? On each customer, it's a little bit different, right? So we try to do that up front so that we have a sound. Why should we do this? When I talk to the kids at school, I say, hey, it's God, motherhood, apple pie, and visibility. Big deal. But what does it mean? What does it mean? What does it do for you? I mean, you'll see as we further talk here. I mean, we talk about connecting, seeing, acting, and automating. And I would say even Project 44 up to 2 years ago, we were just connecting and seeing. We weren't doing any acting, actionable intelligence, or automation. And now with AI and our new decision intelligence platform, it's all about taking the data and saying, hey, we already know this is here. Here's a recommendation. Let's book it, reroute it, etc.
Yeah, I get it. So that we can get actionable results. We can get actual measurable results out of those actions that are taken. I totally get it. When you look at your time that you led teams responsible for hundreds of millions of dollars in annual revenue over at UPS Supply Chain Solutions, what was your key to success there as far as sustaining growth year over year? Because it's not hard to grow quick, but you see a lot of companies fizz out. But there was consistency there. What were some of the keys that you implemented that you thought led to some of that consistency?
So funny story about that. It was Fritz Companies. We got bought in 2001 by UPS Supply Chain, and Ken Evans, your CEO, was our customer. He was at Little Fuse. He was in our office. He found out when we found out that we were bought.
Wow, that is not something I've heard before.
Oh yeah. So yeah, it was good news, bad news. Honestly, I mean, great company, UPS, but I had actually written a paper the year before saying that we needed to be bought because we needed the capital to really grow and expand and scale, like you said earlier. And I thought that we should be bought by FedEx. I thought FedEx had a type of culture that would be more, aligned with Fritz Companies. Culture eats. What they say, culture eats strategy for lunch. It was a lot different at UPS. I mean, it's a great company, but so the challenge there was to keep the whole culture of Fritz and innovation and customer service within this monster company that is all about industrial engineering, right-hand turns, and an engineering type approach versus the creativity needed in a 3PL environment. So the growth, what we focused on was one, people, keeping the employees happy, the
It always
customers,
comes back to people, man.
maintaining the base, lots of education and training because UPS people, all they knew was small package. So they knew nothing about, purchase orders and bill of materials and SKUs and all sort of. They were just tracking packages, whereas Fritz Companies was involved in even just in time to manufacturing operations, and so it was a different. We had to do a lot of cross education there, but. It was those things, trying to hold together the employees and the customers, that would enable the growth. You just can't lose in any business. You can't lose your base. You have to keep your base, upsell them, and grow.
I always talk about protecting the revenue, and making sure the customers are happy, and that you have some other options for them to be able to help their business, and that's critical. You said so many things that I believe in. You talk about value, you talk about impact, you talk about problems to solve. You're not transactional. And one of the problems in today's world is I see so many transactional people. I call our team professionals and strategists, and not reps and executives. Because I don't look at this as a job. I look at this as an opportunity. But when you look at leading teams like you have in the past, what do you think are the biggest differences between selling services for the transportation space and selling technology solutions?
Yeah, that's funny you say that. I call it spray and pray.
Show up and throw up. Show up and throw up.
When I was at Airborne, this is the big 100 years ago, right? The first thing you did, you had to memorize a sales pitch. It was like 20 minutes, and God forbid, don't interrupt me when I'm talking, right?
Oh my God, blow my head off.
So yesterday we have a new employee, and I was just mentoring her, and I said, "What's the number one trait of a professional salesperson?" And I have to admit, she knew. She said, "Listening." And I said, with that is asking good questions and giving before you get, and really understanding the customer. Can you really help them? Do you really want to help them? We're not used car salesmen. We want them to use Konexial and use you for forever, right? And the same with Project 44. So the difference is we're not transactional. We're not selling, what's your rate? I mean, a lot of transportation is treated as a commodity. Whereas on the technology side, it's all about crafting a solution. What's the innovation? What can we do differently? Can we really solve it with this technology? I mean, I said, we really believe we're not the only technology, right? And no one does it alone. And we tell people, like this morning, I got a request from Gartner, what they wanted. I said, we can't do that. Okay, so when I was with Fritz Companies, Fritz, he's a visionary, he's in the Hall of Fame. But when we went out on a sales call, and Jerry, if you said, hey, can you do this, blah, 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 with the automation? And if he was sitting right there, he said, yeah, we can do it. And we'd go back and say, how the hell are we going to do that? But that was his thing. Whatever the customer wanted, he drove the, you can imagine the CIO is crazy.
I'm sure.
When I came into this business with Project 44, and I remember I was on a call and they asked me something, and I started to respond like I was at Fritz in the old days, right? And I got a kick under the table. I said, hey, if we aren't doing it, it's not on the roadmap, it doesn't exist. And so, that's being honest. And so I think those are some of the differences in how you're selling between the transactional freight side and then the technology side that we're on. There's a lot of creativity and innovation involved. Not all people can make that transition.
I get it. I always talk about, people feel like they have to be able to tell people yes all the time.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, I really don't feel that way. I mean, you talk about honest and transparent. There's nothing more honest and transparent than saying, hey, we might not be the right solution for you.
Right.
I always talk about not putting a square peg into a round hole. Why would we waste each other's time? The commitment is short-lived, and the relationship is going to burn out. And you're going to wind up pissing each other off, and it's just not a good situation to be in.
Yeah, no, we're looking for long-term partnerships, relationships with people, and you don't lie to, you tell the truth. That's back to the Marine Corps side of things. But at Project 44, we have it's called Real Talk, and both internally and with customers. So, if this is a situation, hey, your compliance, you're only tracking 70% of your shipments. Well, the reason is the particular carriers you've hired don't have good telematics. You ought to be using Konexial. They're picking people who can't provide the data. And it's a three-legged stool. It's the carrier, it's the shipper, and it's Project 44. So we can't do it alone. So that's real talk. So we try to have that. The other thing is the say-do ratio, which is probably more from the Marine Corps. Whatever you say, you better do. 1-to-1. If you're 0.8, you're probably gone. Okay, because that's what it's all about. I don't need a contract on a handshake, or I tell you I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it, and that's the way we like to do business.
And I believe in that wholeheartedly. Like that say-do attitude. Like if you don't do the things that you say you're going to do, all of a sudden, like you're not trustworthy, and people are not going to value you. So I 1,000% agree with that.
I think the values are very critical. I mean, that's one of ours. Customer obsession is number one. We're not perfect, but the focus and the vision and the commitment is we will strive to be, so.
Or you'll make it right,
Yeah.
So, telling people you're perfect is a flat out lie, and telling people you can do everything is a flat out lie. So we align on that. So when you look at today's world, when you talk to many shippers, many carriers, is what you guys do, right? What do you see the biggest challenge facing both today? Like, how do you guys see it? How do you see it, John?
Yeah. The one that everybody's talking about, of course, is tariffs, which is just one element. The whole geopolitical situation is, really, well, we can go back to, like I said, back to the 70s to now. It's never going to go away. But from a supply chain standpoint, I really believe, personally, it's data. And the other big challenge is people. And the people, again, keep coming back to people, but people adapting, upskilling. Our CEO got on with all the employees last year. We do a town hall every month. And he said, every employee in the world, we got about, 900 employees, whether they were in India or Poland or in the US, please go out there and work with AI, try it, use it at home, use it at work, etc. We run contests every month. And he said, it's important for you, not for Project 44, but for yourself, your family, and your grandchildren, because AI is going to change everything. Yep. So it's that kind of commitment, again, back to what you're asking about, what the challenges are. We're trying to make sure that we're walking the talk.
That's awesome. I didn't know about this about you until I started doing research, for this episode. But you founded or co-founded the Supply Chain Forum of Southwest Florida. My assumption is because you live down there, and you love it. So why did you do it? I mean, what were you looking to fill? Or what gaps were you looking to fill for any of the professionals or educators down there?
Yeah. So it goes back to, I don't know. I've been trying to. I believe in giving before you get. I've been teaching since 1980. I started teaching an 8-week export-import course at Harper College in Palatine, Illinois, and ended up 15 years adjunct faculty Northwestern. I've been at Penn State. I've been at Arizona State, Northern Illinois. So when we moved from Chicago to here, I've always been in the Council of Supply Chain Management Professionals since 1984, and got down here. There was no local roundtable, nowhere to get together with other, professionals like you and shippers and talk about issues and share information. So the nearest one was Miami, of which I was the vice president of the CSCMP there, and the other one was Orlando. So I said, we need to do something here. And you know how things work, kind of karma. My next door neighbor here, her son was the new dean of the University of Florida Gulf Coast College of Business. So I had a beer with him outside, and I said, do you have a supply chain program? He said, no, I'd love to start one. I said,
oh, wow.
I said, I'll help you. So I got together with all the local companies. There aren't that many, but you've got Gartner has a huge office down here, Arthrex, Chico's, the women's clothing, White House Black Market, etc. Arthrex, and then we met with all the professors. It was 2016. I'll never forget it. I made a presentation, and I told all the professors that the way they were teaching supply chain was outdated. All their books, they should throw them away. And that in 5 years, they'd be graduating data scientists. And Jerry, they looked at me like I was from the moon.
That's wild.
And guess what? We graduated, 61 kids last year, more, over half women, and data scientists, and supply chain. And now we have 110 kids in the program, and it's been very exciting. So I started the supply chain forum in conjunction with the university.
That's awesome.
And the real reason was, again, there's nowhere here locally. So in fact, October 29th is our next one. It'll be at here locally. It's called AI and Supply Chain. I've got speakers from Deloitte, Procter and Gamble, and Chico's Knitwell, that organization. They'll be sharing their case studies.
Do you have a web link or a website that people can register for?
Yes, yeah, I can send that out. Yeah, anyway. We only do it twice a year. It's a half a day, and we didn't even used to charge. We're finally going to charge because we give free breakfast and free lunch. It's going to be $25.
Oh my God, you're killing them.
We'll probably still lose money, but it's purely educational. It's not about Project 44.
That is awesome, man. That is awesome. Let's end with this question here, and I always like to ask it to people because I'd like to, I think it's a fun question. There are a lot of people who know you. There are a lot of people who don't know you, but even the people that know you, what is something about that people really don't know, or you don't let people know? Like, give us a little secret about you that most people would not know about you.
It's funny. We play a game all the time when I meet new people, and it's tell me two things that are true and one that's a lie, right?
Yeah.
So now you already learned a little bit about me, but I would say something like, I wrote a book, I played the guitar, and I was a Marine captain. So the lie there is I never played the guitar.
I figured that one out from this interview.
Yeah.
One thing I will take away from this is, we do align on so many things. I do believe that people are the key to a lot, and teams are the key to a lot. Maybe in my younger days, I'm embarrassed by some of the things I did in my younger days. I didn't necessarily feel that way, but I got to tell you, where we go one, we go all. And, in Philadelphia, we got this little saying that you can't be great without the greatness of others. And it really is about people. And I agree with you on data as well. Structure and process, and do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah. I know one thing that we didn't talk about, and I know we had previously said we talked about the standardization and interoperability, and I will say that's what we've built the whole company around. And I'll read this. The real magic happens when standardized data flows through interoperable systems and is interpreted by AI that understands the operational nuance. That's how you move from visibility to orchestration and eventually autonomy. And I think that's where we're going.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Like, when you look at that, I mean, giving 30 seconds on like kind of some stuff that people will see start coming out that they don't see today. Like, what are you guys working on that you think? I know you just rolled out the new platform, and reviews have been great on it, but what do you see as far as what's next for P44?
Well, the one thing we believe in is what we call hardening the product, make sure that it's continuing to be consistent, reliable, and improving, right? So, but it's amazing to me, a quick story, during COVID, people would call me up, and we've been using geofences for years. So we could tell you that, hey, the shipment's been delivered into your Philly DC and got there at 3:15 yesterday. A customer called me up and said, hey, it wasn't delivered here. I said, yes, it was. It's exactly when here's a POD. It's in your yard. So what happened is we developed a whole yard system. And so now we can tell you it's in row 3, slot 202. And we've got customers like Ford and Whirlpool and many others using that now. And I never personally ever thought the yard was that exciting, right? Well, Ford saved 15 million in detention charges using that technology, digital appointment management in the yard, visibility using cameras and RFID. So to me, it's a lot of the things that we're already doing and things Konexial is doing. How many companies aren't really taking advantage of that?
It's crazy, right?
So
I totally get that.
Yeah. So I think sometimes it's back to the basics. Hey, have we really digitized this entire process? Where are the gaps? Where are the black holes? Where could we improve something here? So I think we're spending a lot of time in what I call discovery and workshops with people to see, hey, is there an opportunity here? Forget about the shiny object, and where can we improve the process? I started at IBM, GEICO, garbage in, garbage out. You got a bad process and you automate it, you got a bad automated process. So
Yeah.
sometimes that locking yourself up in a room and rethinking the process can really result in a lot of value.
And the solution might be something that is already there, just not deployed.
Right. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, we started a whole customer success because of that, because they were only using this part, and then didn't know about the rest. Poor on us. Poor on our side that we weren't as thorough as we should have been. Well, John,
What you just said, customer success. Think about that. When I was in the freight forwarding business, we didn't have anything called customer success.
no. I mean, it's customer service.
But customer success is a whole different animal, and we have it, and you have it, and it's all about, are you getting the value out of the software?
Yeah.
To continue forward. And so we spent a lot of time in that with those employees. In fact, they've all been combined now into implementation and customer success. So they live with it. It's kind of eat what you kill. It's a continuous flow here, and I think it results in better solutions and value for our customers. So.
That's awesome, man. John, I really appreciate you taking time. It's great to talk to you. I really did learn a lot more about you. I did not know all this great stuff as far as, the forum that you started, the Marine Corps, I mean, the growth in some of the businesses that you led. I really appreciate you taking time to join us, and, nothing but continued success, and enjoy that flag football game tonight.
Thank you for the opportunity.